Okay, the first thing I'm going to show, I saw somebody comment on a post earlier about how to get a better little square for the back that covers the ends of the elastic. And somebody commented about stitching out that step onto just the stabilizer and then tracing it onto some clear plastic and then adding about 1/8 of an inch all the way around so that you can use that to get your get a cleaner cut, basically, so that you can put that down on top of the ends of the elastic for stitching it down, and then you won't have to worry about trimming it if your trimming gets that chewed look. I know mine does sometimes if I rush or I'm not paying enough attention. So I have a PE 770, and I'm going to show you how you can skip ahead to that step to stitch out the rounded square onto your stabilizer. So I've got the file pulled up, so I'm going to click adjust, and then this little arrow with the plus and the minus, click that, and then the plus sign with the thread, because that will get you to the next color. So there's the red, there's the elastic placement, the elastic tack down. So this step, number 8, is the one we want to stitch out to get that template for the rounded rectangle. So I'm going to come over here, put my foot down, and I'm going to stitch that onto my stabilizer. Now I'm going to pull my hook off of my machine. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. There we go. And lift up my foot. So now we're going to get some clear plastic to make an outline of that. And I have some clear, which just probably like an 8 gauge vinyl here. So I'm going to lay that on top of there, trace it, and then cut about 1/8 of an inch around, and then I'll have that I can use as a template for the fabric I'm going to place there. Okay, so you can see here is where I drew it onto the plastic, just clear plastic, and then I cut a small seam allowance around that, and then used one of my fabric marking pins. I like these friction pins. Use that to draw on the back side of my vinyl to get my square that's going to cover the elastic. Okay, so my hoop is back on my machine, and now I'm going to go back to step 1. So I'm just going to hit that thread minus button here until I get back to 1. And now I'm going to run my first step, which is the placement step for the vinyl onto my stabilizer. So needle down, and now I'm going to run step 1. Okay, I have run my placement stitch, and I wanted to point out the elastic placement on mine. This is on the PE 770, and the orientation when it stitches out is backwards or sideways from what's on the screen. So if you have directional fabric, you can look, the back of the elastic is back there, so when it closes, this is the top and this is the bottom down here. So top, bottom if you're using directional fabric. So I've stitched my placement line now, and I've pre-cut my vinyl to the 6x8. I'm using some soft metallic vinyl from So Hungry Hippie because it's pretty and it matches the fabric I wanted to use. So I cut this to 6x8, and when you put it on, you just want to make sure that all of your placement lines are covered. And I'll peek over the top. And that looks good. I could even move it down. Actually, that all looks like it's good. So we've got our vinyl down. This is the exterior of your notebook. So now I'm going to run step 2, which is going to be the placement line for our applique. So we've got our placement line for our applique, and moving on to step number 3, which is the tack down for our fabric. So just like we did with the vinyl, we're going to slide the applique fabric and make sure that it's completely covering up those placement lines, because we'll trim it after it gets done stitching. And looks good there. And I usually hold the fabric down when I'm stitching it. So I don't use stabilizer if I'm using a cotton lycra, and this is a cotton lycra, the stretchy material. So, my fabric moved on me a little bit. Make sure it's on there straight. And covering up all of the stitching lines. And the back is good. So now I'm going to run step 3, which is the fabric tack down. So my fabric is tacked down, and now I'm going to use my favorite applique scissors, these little red guys, and I believe they're called the Perfect Applique Scissor. If you look for Perfect Applique Scissor, you should find these. They've got a little curved tip on them, so that helps get closer to the thread. So I'm just going to trim right up against that thread now. Okay, our applique has been trimmed now, so we're going to move on to step 4, and I'm just doing the zigzag. So this will either be the zigzag or the satin stitch, going all the way around. And I usually get a good sized tail and hold on to it when I'm starting. Zigzag is complete. So now we're moving on to step 5, which is the elastic placement. So again, I always hold on to that tail when it first starts going. Okay, so now we're ready for our elastic tack down. So it's going to start on the top first, and I'm going to cut this away. and I have pre-cut my elastic here. So you're going to want the right side up, which most of the time the right side is this shinier side. And it just goes right in there. It's going to fit just right inside that little box. And put your needle down. Make sure it's straight. And start. Looks like I cut mine at a little bit of an angle. So now it's going to do the bottom one. So you'll just get your elastic. And it'll kind of be, can you see how it's kind of folded like that? We're going to make sure we've got the right side up here in this little box. I'm going to have to put my foot down and I'll line it up. Right here. And next is going to be the placement stitch for the little square that covers these up. So you may want to get a piece of tape. And I usually keep Scotch tape handy. It's hard to do things one-handed. And just kind of tape that back out of the way there. And when it stitches, it's gonna stitch. It's gonna catch the top and the bottom one. Stop this for a second and cut some jump threads. Okay, so I used the template and pre-cut the little square that's going to cover that. And you want to make sure that you're covering up all of the lines on it. Make sure that your overlap is even on both sides. It looks like it is. Okay, so we've got our rectangle sewn on. We are moving on to step 10. And for step 10, we're going to take our hoop off of the machine. And I've put a piece of Scotch tape there to help hold the elastic kind of out of the way. We're going to flip our hoop over. And we're going to take, and you can use felt, or I like, this is white gumdrop vinyl from So Hungry Hippie. So we're going to put this on the back, and we're just going to check and make sure that all of the lines are covered. So we can actually scoot it over this way just a smidge. And then I'm going to use Scotch tape and put Scotch tape here, and here, and a little piece here, and up here to help hold that on while it stitches. And I am also going to switch my bobbin thread so that it matches my top thread, just because I think that that will look prettier on the inside if the bobbin thread matches the other thread. Okay, we're starting on step 10 now. We've got our vinyl, I don't know if you can see it, but it's taped down there, the bottom. The wrong side is to the interfacing. So the glitter side is facing the bed of the machine. And stitch in here. And we're doing step 10. And we've got just our layer of felt or glitter vinyl, whatever the inside of the notebook cover is going to be on the bottom. Getting ready for step 11, the final step. This is where we're going to put the pockets on that are the inside pockets. So I've got my vinyl pre-cut here to the 3x6. And again, you'll want to make sure you got that it covers the side here. And then I'm going to put tape here along the bottom and the top, and then I'm also going to put one in the middle because tape doesn't leave a residue. The Scotch tape I use doesn't leave a residue on this vinyl. So double check that before you tape to any part of your vinyl that's going to remain part of the final design. Double check and make sure that whatever tape you're using won't leave a residue, because if it does, then you want to make sure you do not put any here in the middle. But if it doesn't, then I usually will tape a small piece there in the middles. Okay, so you can see I've got tape there and there, one in the middle there, and then at the top of each one. So now, we've got our pretty vinyl right side up on the bottom of our hoop, and we're going to flip it over, put it back on our machine, and then something that I like to do on the last steps to get a nice clean back is, again, we're on the last step here, so I like to do the needle up and down once, and then I lift my foot and I bring up the bobbin thread, and then I get my tweezers. Okay, so I've got my tweezers now, and I grab onto that bobbin thread and pull it out, and then I'm going to lower my foot, and I'm going to hold both of these, my top thread and my bobbin thread, I'm going to hold both of those tight while I start stitching this final step. If I can pick it up there. It's hard to do this one-handed. So I've got my bobbin thread, I pulled it up, and this will help give a cleaner finish. And I hold those tight as it starts to stitch. Okay, so it's all done stitching now. So here's the front, and here's the back. And now I'm going to remove all that tape, pop it out of the hoop, and trim around the outside edge. Okay, so we've got it all cut out. And these are the little notebooks from Walmart. Right here, the mini composition books. So take it and open it up flat, just kind of stretch it out a little bit. And then I'm going to take the front cover and slide it in there. And then we're going to take the back cover and kind of bend it just a little bit to slide it inside the back cover. And then when it closes, everything should look like that, all tucked in nice and neat. Flip your elastic around it. And there you go. And there's the back.